told a friend you would exercise this week. You hired a coach. You joined a challenge. You posted your goal publicly, and it worked for a while. The external pressure carried you. You showed up because someone was watching. The question worth asking is not whether it worked, but why it worked. And the answer to that question reveals both the power and the limits of every accountability structure you will ever encounter. Hey there, it's me, Core, and you're listening to Exercising Consistency, from fitness to flourishing. The Preamble. This is the first of 3 episodes on accountability as a whole. In this episode, we look at the mechanism itself, what accountability actually is, why it works, and why it has the limits it has. In the next episode, we examine the pros and the cons, including the compliance trap that undermines most accountability structures. In the final episode, we arrive at the healthiest approach, interdependence, where self-directed standards are the foundation and external support is used by choice, not by necessity. Before we begin, a framing point that matters for the entire series. The foundation of any sustainable practice is virtuous self-control. This requires a personal standard of excellence, the capacity to choose and act in alignment with your highest values. Seeking external help without that foundation in place leads to most of the problems we will explore. The external structure of accountability best supports an existing standard. It must not suggest, or, worse yet, provide a predetermined standard in the absence of one. There are edge cases in which providing, even imposing, clear standards is appropriate. Psychologists point out this is only a temporary measure in almost all cases. Providing an external value system becomes beneficial when an individual's safety, survival, or basic functioning is at immediate risk. For example, those in acute crisis like addiction or trauma. In these cases, the need for immediate stability overrides the risk of dependency. When dealing with healthy adults, accountability is not about imposing values, but about helping them align their actions with their own stated values and goals. In other words, the exploration we're doing here is for emotionally and mentally healthy adults. Okay, with that perspective clear, let's get to it. The levers of external accountability. Accountability is not a single thing. It is a set of mechanisms that share a common feature, the presence of an external witness. That witness can be a person, a system, a deadline, or a public declaration. What matters is that someone or something is watching. There are 5 common levers. 1. Deadlines set by someone else create an urgent necessity to deliver. The time frame is fixed. The consequence for missing it is external. 2. Supervision and monitoring through regular check-ins, tracking, and oversight keep the task in focus. The act of reporting to another person activates a different level of attention than reporting to oneself. 3. Public declarations introduce social stakes. You told the group you would do it. Your reputation is now involved. 4. Peer partnerships create mutual reliance. You have a buddy who expects you to show up. The social contract is bilateral. And 5. Consequences, both positive rewards and negative results, reinforce compliance through external incentives. Each of these levers works. The question is what they work on. Why the levers work. The human brain responds to social standing and peer approval. When goals are met in front of others, you experience positive reinforcement. Being observed achieving a goal activates the same neural circuitry that governs social belonging. The body registers the approval of the group as a reward worth pursuing. The mechanism also operates through executive function. Knowing someone else is watching activates the prefrontal cortex's capacity for decision-making and intentionality. The brain shifts out of default mode and into focused attention. Distractions fade. The task becomes salient because the witness makes it salient. Frameworks like Gretchen Rubin's 4 tendencies identify that certain personality types rely heavily on outer expectations to take action. For these individuals, an external witness is not a preference. It is a near requirement for follow-through. This is neither a flaw nor a virtue. It is a tendency that can be used strategically. Accountability, a metaphor. Accountability is scaffolding. It is a temporary structure that supports a building while the building is under construction. The scaffolding is not the building. It is never meant to be the building. It's meant to hold the shape until the structure can support itself. The honest framing is this: external accountability can get you started when your internal standards are not yet developed enough to carry you. That is a legitimate use. The person who has never exercised consistently, whose personal standard of excellence does not yet include the behavior, may genuinely need the external structure to begin. The coach, the challenge, the public declaration serve as the initial container. The problem arises when the scaffolding is mistaken for the structure, when the witness is assumed to be permanent, when the external pressure is relied upon as the engine rather than as training wheels. The body is the model here. The body does not need an external witness to pump blood. It does not need a deadline to digest food. Every system runs because its nature demands it run. The integrity is internal. The behavior is part of the identity of the organ. The parallel is exact for human action. The person who has internalized the standard of consistency does not need oversight because the standard is part of who they are. The behavior flows from identity, not from external pressure. The upcoming downside. In the next episode, we examine the darker side of accountability, the over-justification effect, where external rewards overwrite intrinsic interest, the fragile compliance that crumbles when the coach or group disappears, the box-checking mentality that detaches the individual from the purpose of the tasks they're getting done with minimal effort, the dependency that develops when the witness is always present, and the internal muscle of honest self-assessment never gets built. A system that depends on an external support to function will collapse when that support is removed. The answer is not to reject accountability. The answer is to use it for what it is: temporary scaffolding that supports the development of an internal standard. The foundation is the personal standard of excellence. That is the building. Everything else is scaffolding. To exercise consistency and become the person who follows through on their most important goals, join the Act Score Challenge. That's it for today. Catch you next time.